Hey guys, it's Ash from Ash Warrior Props, and now we are on to the next video in our beginner foam smithing prop making class course thing. So today we're going to talk about gluing. Gluing is the act of mowage. It's the act of joining your parts together and making intricate shapes like this one. Or these shapes. Or that shape. Maybe that shape. Oh, I missed. Oh, I knocked something over. This is not just one shape. This is a bunch of shapes that are glued together. Gluing is an essential part of the prop making field, whether you're doing foam, plastic, wood, metal, whatever. I want to talk about the different types of glue, the best glue. Okay, I say best. I'm gonna get something out of the way real quick right here. Zoom in for dramatic effect. I don't believe in using the word best when it comes to tools. There are some tools that are shite. There are some tools that are great. But I have noticed in my travels, there is normally an intended use for everything. If it's not working for general assembly, then it can be used for something else. The best example I can think of is every prop maker really wishes there was a thick, sandable, rubberized, flexible sealer, primer, and paint out there for their foam projects, but that's just not the case. It's not out there, it doesn't exist. However, there are several workarounds. Again, I don't believe there is a best and worst out there. There are things that work and there are things that don't work for your intended purposes, but we're gonna cover general assembly glues and kind of various purposes for easily accessible glues for beginners. What do I mean by that? I mean things that you can go buy at the hardware store. I use some of these at the professional scale still. The glues that I'm gonna show, some of them I still use today, but it is a good kind of intro into how to start with a really good product, because it's no fun when your first project comes out stupid. That's a video coming out too. I was laying out my glues right here and realized that all of my glue is not brand marked anymore. Like, I put some of it in unmarked containers. So yeah, so I'm not gonna be able to show, maybe Ryan will throw like pictures of them up on the screen. Okay, so for this, I wanna talk about, like the beginner friendly tools, the tools that are general assembly and whatever. So the one that most people start with and have immediate access to, because everybody's mom has a craft drawer that they have intermediate access to. The first thing that people will often start with is a hot glue gun. I've had this one for years, so you can get a pretty reliable one. Now, what I want to cover today is what you can use beginner tools for. Now, what I see a lot of people who are just starting out doing, they will use hot glue for edge joining. What is edge joining? That is taking like your two shapes and putting them together like so to make one piece. That's essentially how we make helmets. That's how we do just about anything, is edge joining. So with edge joining stuff together, I don't recommend hot glue as it's a great beginner. If you're just trying to put pieces together to understand the workflow and how to work with it, hot glue is a fantastic starter tool, especially if you have nothing else and you don't have a budget. It's great. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There is literally nothing wrong with starting. Everybody has to do it. I, again, have had tools since I was about 6 years old, so all of my experience and stuff is curated over a long period of time. Just because you don't have a big expensive tool does not make this inaccessible. And I'm stalling while I wait for this to warm up. Is it warm now? Let's talk about edge joining. The reason I don't like hot glue for edge joining is because, so let's get our bead in there. And we're gonna put that together. And you can see when you push the two pieces together, you get glue coming out the top. Now, obviously that is not ideal, because once we paint, that's gonna create a visible seam. Hot glue is also not the strongest. Granted, again, that's still a little warm, but you can kind of pull it, and when it separates, it creates ugly surfaces that are gonna be hard to kind of re-adhere. So hot glue will create seams. It will also, if you're at a convention, let's be real, they get hot, they get sweaty. The hot glue, I have seen it happen at conventions where somebody has a costume that is assembled using strictly hot glue, and hot glue seams melt and the whole suit fall apart. So again, hot glue is not my favorite. Look how that comes out of the top of the seam. You cannot sand hot glue. Now again, I have tough fingers, don't do this. So this one is now fully dry. You cannot sand hot glue. It's a plastic and it will just start melting. You can cut it off, but it's not gonna be perfect. I'll go sand this and I'll show you what I mean. When you try to sand hot glue, this is what it does. So it does melt the hot glue, makes it have a really ugly texture. You're never gonna get rid of the seam with hot glue all the way. What can we do with our hot glue gun? Well, I'll show you. So here we have a seamless piece. This is 2 pieces. We have a seamless one. What can you do with your hot glue gun? Well, we can kind of cover seams a little bit with it. I have, for my Corvo mask, it looks like the pieces are welded together. So I mimicked welds with the hot glue gun, and I'll show you how I did that. I went over all of my seams with a tacked and I'm gonna do a little bit of that, gonna make it a little wobbly, and then I took a sculpting tool while the glue is still warm and just kind of dabbled it like so to kind of make it look like an old weld. So you can do kind of welds, weld marks, lines, whatever. Hot glue also works really well for if you're adding rivets to something. I'm gonna use a furniture tack. So take this, add a dab of glue, and drive it in. That way you're not having to have surface contact for super glue on there. Hot glue can also be used for surface detail mounting. Now, I'll show you what I don't like about doing that. For surface detail mounting like that is the glue does squeeze out of the bottom. So all in all, hot glue does have a use. It's just not what I would say for general assembly. So what do I recommend for edge joining? I recommend contact cement. These are glue pots you can get from like a leather supply store. I forget where I got these. I've had these for a while. Also, please wear a respirator when you do this. I have decent ventilation in my shop, and so that way you guys can hear me. Get yourself a respirator or work in a well-ventilated area if you don't have a respirator. The fumes that this stuff puts off is not good for you. I've probably knocked off 10 years of my life. Let's prevent you from doing the same. So, contact cement. There are 2 big dogs in the contact cement arena. The first one is Barge, the second one is Weldwood. My buddy Steve over at SKS Props swears by Weldwood nowadays. I have used both and they are very comparable. The Weldwood is cheaper, substantially. The Barge contact cement, let's find out immediately how much it is. $30.36, which if you've got Prime, that's fine, you can get it at that cost point. Weldwood is about $20, so you can save 10 bucks plus it's immediately available. I've seen some people say that one is stronger than the other. I've used both for a very long time and I cannot tell you which one is stronger. So again, contact cement is contact cement. The way you apply this is you take your brush. Normally the cans that you buy have a brush. If not, you can use an old brush, buy a little chip brush, or get a glue pot like so. I get it on there relatively medium thickness. And the way this works is you have to apply the glue to both sides. It's not something like with super glue or hot glue. If you only do one side, it's not gonna work. So we're gonna let this set for a minute and get tacky. You're not wanting it to get bone dry, so don't leave this here and then walk off and do something. You can speed up the kind of tackiness process. I took a piece of plastic, folded the handle, and you can kind of just get air moving over it. Sometimes people say do 2 coats. I have gotten away with not using 2 coats before, just do a relatively thick coat or, whatever. One trick I do want to show people real quick, just to make sure they get clean seams. Don't use the face of the brush, use the side of the brush, like so, and this prevents you, see, there's none on the face, it's only on the edge. Whereas if I use the face of it and brush, I get glue on the side, which will create, like a bubble up or a extra texture. So use the side of your brush. Helps a lot. So this is, it may seem a little long. I went a little heavy on this just for demonstration purposes. You can kind of feel Yeah, it should be good enough. When you put these together, if you don't want a seam, kind of line up the top edge closest to your face, like so, and push together. Now I have noticed if you add pressure, it will be a little bit stronger. If you just tack it on there, for whatever reason, if the glue is still wet, it's going to not fully cure. That's another thing. If your contact cement is at all still wet or droopy, it will not create a seal, therefore it will not dry all the way. See? There we are. That is kind of what I recommend for edge joining. Now again, for the sake of the video, I do have I have the seam there. It's not much of a seam, as you can see. It's mostly just there because I was putting pressure on it. The thing that I like about the contact cement in this sake is you can do this. You can sand and get the seam to kind of disappear. The glue will kind of just blend with the foam, like so. That's why I prefer contact cement anyway, is you can kind of make two pieces look like one in that fashion. That's kind of the best thing to do for general assembly is your contact cement. One of the things I don't like about contact cement for adding surface details is it will do the same thing as it will leave a mess. Unless you have like a really teeny brush, it will leave a mess. So what do we do about surface detailing? Let's talk about super glues that are out there. So I get refillable bottles of super glue like these. This is Bob Smith super glue, Instacure super glue. I like this stuff a lot. It works really, really well. There are a couple problems with it. I really don't like it for edge joining. I'll show you why. So you can do this, and because of the way that super glue is, it will want to absorb into the foam a little bit and not create a full surface contact. It's kind of like if you're trying to join two hands together, this would be your bead of super glue. It would be smack dab like that, and it would not smush all the way when you add your other piece. So it's not covering the entire area, it's literally just doing where you put that bead, which is perfect for adding edge details, or if you're adding like magnets or whatever. The super glue is just all around good for anything that needs to be small and added. And you can add it to the base or you can add it to the detail. It really doesn't matter. Now obviously the super glue will squeeze a little bit out from what you press it onto, but not near as much as the super glue, like so. Now, what do I use the super glue for? Anything detail related. So, I know I just showed this. Anything detail-wise, any raised detail, any thickness, I use the super glue for. I use contact cement for edge joining, super glue for, you know, other stuff. Or like trim pieces. Again, there is no right or wrong way to do this. I don't want you to go into this thinking that there is one glue to rule them all. That's just not. That's not the case in this kind of business. They're different tools for different things. So again, contact cement really takes the cake for doing edge joining. If the only thing you have access to is hot glue, it will work. You will be able to make a project with hot glue. It's not the ideal material for that kind of project. There are plenty of demonstrations out there for contact cement if you need more. But again, the general gist of it is to do little swipe on both sides, wait for it to cure, tap it together. And that should do it.